Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Night Warrior. I'm Spencer, host of Constructive Criticism and Limited Time Only, two podcasts about getting better at Magic the Gathering. Today, we are going to talk about something that I'm interested in that I don't know the solution to, or I don't know the answer to. I honestly just don't know. But it's something that I talked to some friends about, and I just kind of wanted to get out here and talk about it. So, for those who don't know, there was a lot of talk on Twitter this weekend about the deck list that some of the Japanese players played at their GP. And a lot of it was kind of bashing, just openly mocking these Japanese players for their deck lists. And so I kind of want to go over some of the deck lists and some of the interesting cards and kind of ask the question, are Japanese players approaching Magic from a fundamentally different place than American players are? Because people just openly mock these players, and I don't think that's the right approach. I think that there is a world in which we can actually learn from these deck lists, because why did they make the choices they made is more important than being technically correct. I think that here's the thing is, I don't read Japanese articles, I don't talk to Japanese players, so I don't know if they're coming from a different place than American players. And because of that, American players are very analytical. Everything we do is to increase percentages, and just by the books, process, analytical oriented. And I don't know if that is where Japanese players are coming from. It could be that they're just coming from a different place. And so I kind of want to talk about some of the lists. So on the screen we have this affinity list that people did some talking about. This deck plays a few interesting choices. So first of all, it plays 2 Galvanic Blast and 2 Thoughtcast and 2 Master the Theorem. It's only playing 2 Steel Overseer, but it's also playing a Collected Company. Its total sources for green are 4 Opal, 4 Splitting Retrum, so 8, plus a Glimmer Void. That's 9, 10, 11 total green source. This deck actually, looking at it, it's actually even playing less colored sources. See, I don't know. I don't know what's correct, guys. So when I look at this deck list, it just looks weird to me. It looks weird. I don't know. And I'm just wondering, how did this person end up with these numbers? And I think that too often we look at it and go, it's weird, and just say it's bad, rather than trying to dissect it. And I'm not going to try and dissect it on this video, but it's something that I wish we did more of, right? How did he come to 1 Glimmer Void, 2 Spire of Industry, and then a green card, 2 red cards, and 4 blue cards as his colored spells? That's something I want to know. I don't want to just make fun of him for it. The other interesting one was the one right below it, this Esper Control list that played 4 Glorybound Initiate, a Batter Skull, times 4 Painful Truths, which is pretty sweet. And then it played a Devour Flesh and 23 lands. And this deck is just different. This is just not a deck that we typically see from American players. When they build their control decks, they're very control-oriented, and they like to play a lot at instant speed, and they wouldn't play a card like Glorybound Initiate. How did he come to Glorybound Initiate? These are things that I think, rather than making fun of the person for, and making fun of this Devour Flesh, to think, why did this person decide that he needed a Devour Flesh in his main deck? Did he just really want a really good instant speed answer to Death Shadow? Because if you look at Devour Flesh, right, if they sacrifice a creature and then gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and that creature's a Death Shadow, that's a lot of life that they've gained, and you've killed their Death Shadow, making their next Death Shadow effectively unable to be played. So making fun of the Devour Flesh actually isn't good. He actually had really good technology here, and people were just kind of attacking him for it. And I think that we need to get beyond that as players, and I don't know if it's just American players that do this. It's the only ones that I interact with. But in the world of Magic, I think it's important that we try and learn from what everyone's doing, not just our localized groups. And when I look at Collected Company in an Affinity deck, I want to understand why he's playing Collected Company, why he decided the split he decided on his Galvanic Blasts and his master the theorems and his land base. Like, how did he end up with these lands? Like, he ended up playing a snow-covered island, and then a split where he doesn't really have that many red sources. So, like, he had to have a reason that he didn't pick a lane. When you talk to an American players, they're just going to tell you to typically just pick a lane. Or have the correct number of sources, and then do the math with the correct number of sources. But I think that there's something to be said about a player did well with the deck because he understood it. So you shouldn't, even if you don't agree with that person, I think that it's important that you try and understand the point of what they're coming from. And that is something that I'm going to be trying to actively do over the next, hopefully, I'm going to make it a goal of mine for the next year. Is like, when I see something I don't understand in a deck list, I want to dissect it in a way that isn't negative. So if my starting point is, well, this is bad, look how bad this is, I'm not really dissecting it. Where if I come into it with, okay, this person did well with this deck, why do I think that they did well with it? I'm more likely to come to a conclusion that actually leads me to learn something. So I don't know where these Japanese players are starting from, but I think that it is incorrect for us to, as Americans, to just assume that we're correct when looking at these deck lists. So that's kind of it for this week. That's what I wanted to say and kind of talk about. Kind of a shorter thing, something that was just in my head that I wanted to get in out loud. And if you have thoughts on this and how we can get better at this, besides maybe learning Japanese and talking to these players, let me know. I want to get better. I want to understand where these players were coming from with their deck lists. So thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget that you can support this content by going to patreon.com/ccmtg, becoming a patron. You can also, on this show every week is on puremtgo.com, so check them out, as well as mtgotraders.com. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys all next week.